very good evening to everyone present here. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for joining us today for this panel discussion on fellowships being organized by the Higher Education Club of the Placement Cell, Sri Ram College of Commerce. I, Shravan Jaiswal, along with Akriti Gupta, shall be the moderators for today's session. Fellowships are becoming one of the most preferred exit options, not only for the students of SRCC, but also other colleges. However, little is known about the same. There is a lack of awareness about fellowships in general, about along with their various aspects. Today's discussion will be focused on doing just that. That is, guiding the attendees on the domain of fellowships. As it is rightly said, it is the province of knowledge to speak, and it is the privilege of wisdom to listen. We are delighted to have with us four of our distinguished alumni who shall be sharing their valuable insights with us. Ms. Ashna Monga, from the graduating batch of 2018, completed the prestigious Young India Fellowship from Ashoka University. She is currently working as an associate consultant with Sattva Consulting. She was the secretary of the Commerce Society and a senior executive member of the Students' Union during her undergrad. We welcome you, ma'am. Ms. Saloni Chaudhary, from the graduating batch of 2019, has completed the Legislative Assistant to Member of Parliament LAMP Fellowship, offered by the PRS Legislative Research Society. Apart from this, she also has been a Policy in Action Fellow with the Young India Leaders for Active Citizenship. She is currently working as an associate with Samagra. She was the senior research head of the Commerce Society, along with being the head of public relations of the Finance and Investment Cell. We are highly honored by your presence, ma'am.
So our next panelist is Ms. Sonia Gupta from the graduating batch of 2017, has been a research fellow with the Center for Advanced Studies in Policy Research. She is currently working as a research assistant with MICA Ahmedabad. She also holds an MCom from the prestigious Delhi School of Economics. She has been the recipient of prestigious Mitsubishi UFG Foundation Scholarship while in college. She also held the position of Deputy Media Secretary of the Students' Union and Secretary of Actuating Society. We are delighted to have you here, ma'am. Our next panelist is Ms. Khushbu, from the graduating batch of 2018, has completed the Legislative Assistant to Member of Parliament LAMP Fellowship offered by PRS Legislative Research. She is an incoming strategy consultant with Global Business Services of IBM and is currently pursuing her MBA from the renowned Indian Institute of Management, IIM Bangalore. We are highly obliged by your presence. So, we shall now be starting with the session, and the audience can put any questions in the chat box at the end of the session. So, we will fellowship.
Hello, and pleasure to be here where we can discuss about different fellowships and programs. And we look forward to the discussion, and we would really open the stage for students to discuss about various domains and sectors where they can understand the career opportunities and the fellowships as well. So welcome you all.
So our first question is, what is a fellowship? Could you please explain about your fellowship?
So, I would like to go first with this. I believe that fellowship is something that is more of a journey where privileged people are there to specially elected in recognition of the work that they do and to contribute towards the society. And I believe Ashna would definitely understand with her wife how this status is associated with the academic institution or an organization like the LAMP Fellowship with others have, and there you can gain that professional experience, mentored by experts, and have a larger goal that you can work on. Ashna, what about you?
So I completely agree with Sonia. Just to sort of also put it in like very, very simple terms, like what she said is that a fellowship is basically a program that has, that caters to like different aspects of learning, right? Now that can be research oriented, it can be, academically very rigorous. It can also give you very hands-on experience and on-ground experience of getting to know about things, right? And today you have fellowships on literally everything. Like you name it and you have it. You have these development sector fellowships, like the Young India Fellowship, like the Gandhi Fellowship, like the Teach for India Fellowship. You have the policy fellowship like LAMP Fellowship. There is a fellowship on entrepreneurship. There's Naropa in Ladakh. Lots of fellowships. There's a fellowship on tech as well. So I just say that it depends on like fellowship to fellowship, but it caters to different sorts of learnings. Just to sort of also explain a little bit about YF, about what YF exactly is. It is Ashoka University's flagship program. It's a one-year multidisciplinary course on liberal studies. Just in terms of structure, it's a one-year course. You have electives, you have core courses, you have 8 terms of like 6 weeks each. Apart from that, you also have an ELM, which is the experiential learning module, where you get to work with companies. They can be social enterprises, corporates, organizations, NGOs, foundations, and you work with them for about 7 months. You also have a critical writing program and a mentorship program. So all in all, like Sonia said, fellowships, I personally, from my experience, I feel that make you very, very socially conscious. They give you a different perspective on things. You tend to look at things from different lenses. They give you a different worldview. And, I think it leads to like a holistic development. And it's very different from what we do in our undergrad.
Yeah, so I can go next. So I completely echo points made by Ashna and Sonia in terms of how fellowship is a very experiential learning program, wherein I would peg it somewhere between an academic program as well as like a full-time job opportunity, right? So you're learning while doing something. So in that sense, you're getting to explore more niche spaces and see how you fit in the overall ecosystem and therefore define what you would want to do as like a broader master's or a broader career. So that's how I would like to see fellowship. More specifically, coming to the LAMP fellowship, so LAMP is it stands for the Legislative Assistant to a Member of Parliament, which is essentially a 10 to 11 months long fellowship wherein you're working with a Member of Parliament and you're their legislative research assistant, right? So a huge part of what you're doing is just research for the MP in terms of research for the various legislative and policy debates that are going to happen, for questions that a Member of Parliament has to submit, for various private member bills that they have to put up in the Parliament. And other than these primary responsibilities, there's also like this peripheral set of responsibilities like background research for any media events that an MP has to do or any conferences that they have to attend. So in terms of just the exposure, it gives you immense exposure to the public policy field if that is something that you want to understand more of. And just helps you understand how the policy space works in India, given that it's a very niche space and not really everyone understands how it works. So it helps you understand who the various players in the field are and where you sort of then see yourself contributing in the broader scheme of things. Yeah.
If you're really interested into making a career into academia, then the Center for Advanced Studies in Policy Research, that Casper Fellowship that we have, is also into promoting interdisciplinary research, where the areas are like economics, social policy, history, law, state, media studies, and international relations. So I'm a person who's from the marketing and strategy background, and I'm incorporating those things into social impact. So you are supposed to do various workout things on the research part, where it includes development activities to publish scientific work that you work around with the collaborations with other professors and people. And you can also conduct relevant teaching work and develop the academic content for organizations that you partner there, including the NGOs and the government organizations in the form of working papers or articles or reports or case studies. You can also contribute towards a book writing project and mentor and coach the other researchers that are developing their own techniques in that area. So specifically, if you are really interested into developing something that is more of academic research, and if you look forward to a journey of MPhil or PhD, Casper Research is one of those fellowships that you can definitely look forward to, and it really gives you the pleasure of incorporating your ideas into niches where you are working with high-end professors from IIMs and universities which are globally renowned. So Casper Fellowship gives you that kind of rigor in its own self?
So I think so most of it has been covered by Saloni because both of us were a part of the LAM fellowship. But I think one thing that fellowships do in general is that they help you. They give you a year where you can explore what is it exactly that you want to do. So you will be a part of the fellowship and you'll have a lot of time to explore things. Like one good thing that LAM does is that it opens a lot of avenues in terms of for you to understand different sectors. For example, within the lab program of agriculture, there are a lot of sessions on education and other different sectors of the economy. So you get a very, very broad perspective into the policy space. And I'm sure that's true for other fellowships such as YIF and all of the other fellowships that were mentioned as well. So I think it just broadens your perspective and it gives you a lot of clarity in terms of what is it that you would want to do later on with your career. So yeah.
That was very insightful. Moving ahead, how does a fellowship differ from an internship or a full-time role? Additionally, what is your take on fellowship versus masters?
Would you like to go ahead, Ashna?
I can maybe go first. So good question. Fellowship is very, very different from a master's, right? I mean, this is just my perspective, but everyone else, please free to pitch in. I feel that masters is some sort of a specialization, right? I feel, and this is, I'm speaking in context of YF because YF is a multidisciplinary course, so there is a lot of breadth to it, but there is not much depth to it, so to speak, right? You do a master's, that means you're doing a specialization in a particular thing. You're in the fellowship specifically for YF. We end up doing, anywhere between like 20 to 25 courses in a year, apart from your ELM and your critical writing course. So, I did courses, and you get to, curate your own fellowship, right? So I did courses that I hadn't done I did a mix of courses that I wanted to explore in the fellowship and that I hadn't done before in my undergrad. So I ended up doing courses of, ranging from sociology to philosophy and cognitive science to psychology, international relations, foreign policy, literature, foundations of leadership. And it was like an amalgamation of courses, right? So I got, and I know like a little bit about everything, but if I from my fellowship experience, I don't know in depth about a particular subject unless I, also decided to, take other avenues to get to know more about it. So I felt that one, difference that the fellowship and YF anyway has, the intent of YF is very different from a master's, I'd say. But yeah, one major difference was it was not a specialization per se, but it was like a multidisciplinary course where you were getting to know about a lot of things and you were getting a perspective on a lot of things, right? And that in itself, this was just a medium to an end. And that in itself made me, it made me question things. It made me think critically because I got my purview expanded, right? My vantage point expanded. And I could really sort of think from like different lenses and different perspectives. So that's how I felt that, my fellowship was specifically different from like a master's, so to speak. I think the sort of, coming to your question of how is it different from an internship or a job, I think the freedom you get in a fellowship is also very different from what you get in your job, right? Because here you can, and I'm pretty sure it might be relevant for other fellowships also, you have the choice to curate your own fellowships, right? You have the choice to take up an ELM in the in the area that you want to go ahead with. So because I wanted to go into the development space, I took my ELM, in the development space, and I ended up doing my ELM with the UNO Social Business Initiative. I took my critical writing course in development studies. I specifically took courses that were related to development. So that is how I curated my fellowship. I feel that maybe I wouldn't have gotten this sort of freedom to explore in my internships or in my jobs. So that is how I felt that the fellowship sort of, gave me that leeway to also explore a lot of things at the same time and be clear as to what I want to do.
I agree with Ashna, and I second that it's much more exploratory in that sense. And I believe that there are different kind of fellowships that we have discussed. So apart from the fellowship programs that we all belong to, there are other fellowships which we'll talk eventually. But yes, there are usually short-term opportunities which are lasting from few months, maybe 9 to 10 months, which are even ranging to a year or more than a year, like Teach 20 fellowships and others. So it is depending on the where the sector is and what the work is. Because if you are saying about the development sector, it might be extended for a long time to create an impact. So I do believe that as a fellowship, you're really obsessed with a particular idea, and then you're taught the means to solve it. And also you learn throughout the process how you can execute and create an impact and contribute towards the domain. So there are different training programs according to the scenario, where you have on ground reality check. For example, SBI Youth Fellowship and the Gandhi Fellowship, Teach for India Fellowship. You work on ground with the schools. So that's the kind of leverage that you get with these kind of fellowships. And it's a combination of learning as well as executing the planned activities and strategies for an impact. So this is how an internship is going to be different from the process, because you are more accountable in the fellowship program journey in contrast to the internship programs that you are. So I believe that a fellow is really working towards the fulfillment of the work, and at the same time they get a sense of purpose and fulfillment within own self. That's a very important task. So you will work of always a credit to your name in comparison to some corporate work where every report will have that kind of organization's name. Something will come out to your credibility as well. And also, I believe that it is not a master's program, as Ashna correctly said, because there is some specialization involved in masters, but also fellowships focus on practical application of the knowledge and education that you've gained over the time. But at the same time, they're going to give you the platform where you can learn more and in depth about those things. So it is different for different fellowships. So in Casper Fellowship, you are deep diving into research. If you are looking forward towards academic research, you rigorously learn about research methods and the techniques, and there are different technical terms which I don't really want to use the jargons here, but yes, you get into the real essence of what research and research writing papers and working papers, all that is. And that does make sense for you if you really want to get into the academia, get into professor line or research line. For specific masters like development, education, public policy, this kind of fellowship groundwork experience is very good and very important with non-partisan organizations or government, because your maturity level and understanding of the development issues on ground adds value to your application, and maybe you can say that it helps you to fetch a good master's eventually, after 2 to 3 years of good work experience. So these fellowships are very unique and specialized and prestigious in their own self than the internships or the masters. So you definitely go to that experience if you want to be sure about a particular field.
I think one more point, as Sonia correctly said, the ownership is a very big aspect of a fellowship. The amount of ownership that you get in a fellowship is not something that you're going to get in an internship at all. And secondly, a fellowship, just from a career progression standpoint, a fellowship adds a bit more value to your resume as opposed to an internship, because an internship, at the end of the day, you are an intern, you're not going that way, but as a fellow you have complete responsibility. For example, let's say if we take the example of LAMP, then your MP is going to trust you with certain work, and you will be responsible and accountable for that work. Similarly, if you talk about other fellowships like Teach for India, any of these fellowships that require you to work with someone, you will be held accountable and responsible, and hence you will learn a lot more as a fellow as opposed to an intern in any program that you enter.
Just from the very mechanical standpoint, I feel just very crude facts. How it's different is that it's a more full-time role as opposed to an internship. And how it's different from a job is that it's very structured, right? So for instance, a LAMP or a YF would have like very set modules or very set roles and responsibilities that you're supposed to have, as opposed to probably like a job wherein it's just everything under the sun, right? So in a fellowship, you're focusing on very specific things and just picking up very specific things and trying to get those done, and it's for a fixed duration. So like for instance, how your a full-time role would not really have like a limit to it. You can only work here for a year or two. A fellowship would be ideally like a 10-month, 1 year, 2 year thing. So that's just how it's different from a very crude structural standpoint. And on the master's thing, I would see the fellowship as a stepping stone towards your master's, because through a fellowship, you understand much more about the field that you would want to do your master's in. Like that's how you sort of discover if a particular field is what I, so for instance, if I'm doing a LAMP fellowship, maybe that's how I'm realizing that, okay, public policy is something that I'm genuinely interested in and may want to therefore consider a master's in. So I would see it as a stepping stone, as like a natural progression towards a master's, or something, as opposed to something like a versus decision, like, right, like a master's versus a fellowship, as opposed to a master's after a fellowship.
That's really insightful. So, I would also like to ask, what are the various organizations that provide fellowships, and also what are the various channels through which we get to know about them?
So I believe that there are different domains, as Ashna previously also mentioned, that they have specialties, which domain you really want to enter. So I really created a slide for the students to understand what are the various options that they can see after internship. So these are the various domains that are there. So for research, we have like Casper Fellowship. We also have Global Challenges and Research Fund, which helps you to get into academic research. And those are the fellowship programs which are around 8 months to 1 year, depending on the work that you do. Then in the education sector, there is Teach for India, definitely, which is having an on-ground experience for 2 years, where you're placed in a government school and you work towards the betterment of the courses and curriculum, and not only as a teacher, but as a entire system for the education, where you also recommend your feedback. Then there is Gandhi Fellowship by Cavalier Education Foundation, where you work as a school leader, and you also help in developing the systems and the designs of how the schools have to be working. Then you have the Policy and Development fellowships like CMGGA, which is Chief Minister's Good Governance Associate, where you are placed under the government of Haryana and you're working on the several issues, including education, sanitation, and various others. And apart from that, there is the IHS Urban Fellows Program, which is really into the urban fellowship and development and urban planning part of it. So these are the three domains. And apart from that, we have rural development, where you can see the SBI Youth for India fellow program, which is really very rigorous, and it makes you it helps you put through the ground reality of those rural areas where you live with the people and understand how it goes. And you also have AIF America India Foundation's William J. Clinton Fellowship for the rural development and understanding of how it helps. So these are few of the fellowships that undergraduate students can look up to be able to contribute towards something and understand their forte and area in those particular domains. Other fellowships are more or less requiring a master's degree or a PhD level. So I believe that people who are really interested into development sector and policy can look forward to these domains, and you can, I can connect you with the particular people who are in those domains. I'm connected with people who are already working in such fellowships, and it's a beautiful experience. So as we all are here, I believe fellowship program definitely has created an impact on our lives, not only to see the world in a different way, but also to contribute towards it. So I believe there are some other things that Ashna and Saloni and Khushbu can also contribute.
I think Sonia has really, really beautifully just summarized everything. So I really don't have anything else to say. But I just say, this is the most basic thing. I mean, if you really want to start somewhere, just like do a quick Google search, right? And then you will get to know. I mean, you just search, okay, development fellowships or fellowships in tech or fellowships in fashion or fellowships in entrepreneurship, and you'll get everything. So, you just need to start. And there are like a lot of fellowships nowadays. You can see which one suits you. You can see which one caters your interest. So within fellowships also, right, like within development sector, say hypothetically you're interested in the development sector, so within that also you will have a slightly academically rigorous fellowship like YF as compared to working on ground, right? Like Sonia said, like the Gandhi Fellowship, like CMGGA, or like TFI, like SBI. There you're working on, I mean, for 2 years you're living in those villages and you're working on ground. So that is very different as compared to like other fellowships. So I mean, I think it's also sort of being a little self-aware of what is the kind of experience you want for yourself within a particular sector as well. So yeah, just knowing that, and rest, I mean, Google knows everything. So that's about it.
Yeah, so just addressing the question about what kind of organizations provide the fellowship. So I don't think there's a blanket answer to it. So you have organizations ranging from like the government's actually providing the fellowship, which is the case with like a CMGGA type fellowship, to like universities or private organizations, NGOs and foundations. So all sorts of organizations have these fellowships. So there's no blanket answer to it in that sense. And in terms of how you get to know about the fellowship, so before that, as both Sonia and Ashna rightly pointed out, you have to know what kind of fellowship you're looking for, what domain are you looking for in. So, for instance, I knew that I wanted to do something in public policy, and therefore, a fellowship in public policy is what would make sense for me. You, for instance, may be interested in tech policy, and therefore, there would be fellowships in tech policy that you may want to explore. So in that sense, you need to first have that self-awareness of what you want to do, where you want to go, and therefore the fellowship that can help you as a stepping stone in that direction. Then just finding people in that field, right? So for instance, I had spoken to Khushbu regarding LAM, and like a lot of people reach out to their immediate seniors, maybe in college, maybe through the social circles, etc., to just find out about the fellowships, what their experience has been, if there are any other fellowships in that domain that compare to what you're currently looking for, and understanding really the nitty gritties of what your work would look like. And once you've done that research, is understanding what exactly is it that the fellowship is trying to achieve, and if your objectives align with the objectives of the fellowship. So there's actually a very good list by IDEA, which is the Indian Development Review, on like a fellowship on fellowships in the development sector. The chat is disabled right now, but perhaps I could send one of you guys the link and you can share it with everyone. So this is like an exhaustive list of all the fellowships in the development sector. So if you're interested in the dev sector, you can definitely go through this list to just find out what all is available and where you see yourself contributing.
Just to add to that, I think your third year, maybe your fifth term, would be a good time to start because that's the time when you start sort of your place, you start active thinking about is it that you want to go in your life. So your fifth term is a good time to start thinking and looking at these things. Two very good ways of doing this is one, looking at LinkedIn, because other than a development sector, some of the established fellowships like LAMP or Teach for India or YF, etc., there are organizations that also offer fellowships. So if you actively look on LinkedIn, you might find a few things that are recently opening up.
I think that was really helpful for the attendees. Thank you all. Moving ahead, we would request you all to please share your own fellowship experience. How did you get the fellowship? Additionally, what all did you get to learn?
In the Casper Fellowship, that is about the academic research, it was a very vigorous environment that we have to work in. The professors from IIMs and global universities collaborate together on working on papers and issues that are really impacting on social level. So I'm currently working on a paper on SMEs and how the marketing will help in internationalization for the small businesses. So these kind of topics are there. And also recently Casper rolled out research grant and scholarship application where I backed the Harold Laswell scholarship for $1,000 US dollars. And the aim of that is to present a proposal where you are working on something really creating as a domain, as a wave of literature. So I'm currently working on a book writing project of my own in telemedicine domain, and it's on the progress and the survey is going on. So you have to work rigorously back and forth. Apart from my full-time job at MICA as a RA, I have to maintain this work, which is a part-time fellowship, where you have to be constantly in touch with your own self regarding your passion. This thing is what keeps me awake at night, and I love to do it. So if you're really into it, then only it makes sense to push yourself into such fellowships. And if you're thinking of it as a way to reach somewhere, then you might not put in your heart. So believe in what area you would love to contribute in. So the current roles and responsibilities which a fellowship experience has given me was to able to conduct research into the development area where I could combine the business aspect into the social aspect. And I love to work at the intersection of public policy, social impact, and businesses, because I personally believe that there has to be some backing of monetary terms and business solutions that are helping the social sector run, be it in the way of endorsements, sponsorship, or anything. And I'm able to publish my research papers and the results which are useful for the policymakers and for the people who are actually into the practice of research. And these kind of things help us in conducting relevant work, which is adding to the literature and contribution for everyone. And of course, the best part is that you get to get your own name and royalties for the papers. That is side apart. So you can definitely have a mentorship program within, where you are mentored by a head supervising professor, and you are mentoring the other interns in this organization, and helping in developing the research techniques, and understanding how to collaborate, how to choose your authors, understanding the every ABCD of research paper, of how to write from starting to end, every decision you take. And eventually I've realized that many organizations are really looking forward to people who are specialized and have in-depth knowledge, and many PhDs are being preferred over even other courses or other degrees, because of that kind of depth that is required. So it depends from area to area, I would say. So I through this experience and my experience in MICA, I was able to get a offer admit at Cambridge for the MPhil program in strategy, marketing, and operations. So that is what fetches you over the time. That was not the end goal. That is the journey that I went through. So if you really are interested in it, you will fetch through, and you will achieve those areas that you want to. So I believe that fellowship program is very exclusive and exhaustive in its own self.
You
Saloni,
can
wanna
go ahead, Ashna. It's fine.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. So I completely again agree with Sonia. I just maybe want to take some time to explain my YF experience, and also other people's YF experience, because mine was a little different, and touch wood, the fellowship worked out beautifully for me, but I also want to give an unbiased view. So I personally went to YF to explore, because when I was in my third year of college, I had eco, and I was a little confused between, I really wanted to explore, facets of policy, of development. We didn't really have much opportunities back in college to really sort of experience all of this. I got to know about the fellowship from one of my batchmates in college, and then I spoke to a couple of seniors from SRCC only who'd done the YF, and then I got to know about their experience, and spoke to other people who'd done the fellowship, and then that's when I knew that, okay, fine, I have to do this. So I personally went to explore. That's it. From my experience, I've realized that there are three major reasons why someone would go to the Young India Fellowship. And this is no rule of thumb, but just based on my limited experience from the people around me. One is to explore, right? People like me who are a little confused, who want to know, who want to just, experience and explore and then see what they want to get into. There were other kind of people who wanted to transition either academically or professionally. There were people who had come from corporates, who'd come from these big firms like McKinsey. One of my own seniors from SRCC, he was working in Deutsche, and then he came to the fellowship, and then he transitioned. Then there are people who just want to learn, right? People who just want to take a year off to just explore, learn, etc. So these were the three major reasons why people came to the fellowship. Um, so when I went to the fellowship, right? So I mean, for me, the fellowship experience was life altering. It was really, really transformational, and for me, the takeaways were more intrinsic than materialistic, because they completely changed me as a person, because my worldview, my perspective changed towards things, right? It made me more aware, more socially conscious. So I'm also going to come to the materialistic sort of takeaways from the fellowship, but first I'll talk about some of the more softer aspects, which was like I said, it made me critically think, analyze, question. It made me a much, much more self-aware person. It made me more socially conscious, and it gave me a purpose, right? And that maybe, all four of us share a common vision, a common purpose of sort of working in the social impact space through different mediums, right? So that is one thing that I really got cognizant of my surroundings. B was, like Sonia also mentioned, there is a lot of research that you have to do in the fellowship. So I mean, to be honest, when I was in college, right, in SRCC, I really didn't read books and all. But as a part of the fellowship, you have to do it. You have to write papers. You have to do assignments. You have to write thesis, research papers, and that really adds on to you, right? Your knowledge base, etc. Your writing, like she was talking about citations. You have to, even to write a 1,000-word paper, you have to read other 10 papers to write a 1,000-word paper. So that is there. Apart from that, you have group assignments, you have different sort of assignments, so all that is great. Your writing gets really good, your research skills get really honed. that is one thing. Apart from that, I think what attracted me to YF was the faculty, because the professors were really good, right? I mean, for those of you who might be in third year, who might have done eco, you might know about Pulakte Balakrishnan, right? So we used to read his papers in college, and he used to teach in Ashoka. So it was really surreal for me to, to know that, okay, the professors whose papers I read in college, I will be learning from them in Ashoka. So that was one of the major attractions for me back, when I was in college, and I really got to learn from some of the best faculties all over the world. There are people from UPenn, Harvard, Stanford, LSE, all of that. So all that was really great. And for me, the takeaways from the fellowship were more because when I went to the fellowship, I was 21 years at that time, and I was one of the youngest people. So I had people, I was studying with engineers from IIT. There were people who were from marketing. There were investment bankers, lawyers. There were also doctors. And but in my batch, when I was at the fellowship, there were 10 people from SRCC, out of which only 4 of us were from my batch. And the others were 5-6 years elder to me. One was a CA, one had done law from DU. She'd come. So you get to learn a lot because you're studying with a lot of, you're studying with a diverse set of people, right? That was more on the softer aspects. Some of the more material aspects I've already spoken about, right? Like you curate your own fellowship in terms of the courses you take, in terms of ELMs, in terms of, the professors you work under, in terms of other activities that you do. There are a lot of centers in Ashoka as well. So all of that has been there. In terms of that, and then I ended up getting a job at Satva as well, right? So I was lucky enough to get that. So the takeaways for me were, I mean, it worked out well for me. Takeaways for me personally that I really cherish are more intrinsic. However, having said all of this, right, I also want to give a caveat that it depends on like people to people. It's very subjective, right? What worked for me might not work for someone else because people go to fellowships with different expectations. So I know the fellowship worked for certain people, but I also know people for whom the fellowship did not work that much. Who were expecting something else, who had come from like different walks of life. I think, like again, we circle back to the point of self-awareness. You should really know what you want from the fellowship. And then during the fellowship, you take those conscious decisions to get your takeaways from the fellowship, be it intrinsic or materialistic. So that is a caveat that I want to give. And the second thing, very specific to Ashoka, that I want to say is that if you're planning to do a fellowship for placements, then don't, because placements is not the end outcome of doing a fellowship. It's more of learning. It's more of getting that perspective. And specifically for Ashoka, right? Because that's not the end objective of the fellowship. And I think this is one thing they also mention on the site while you also go through that YF site. So that this was personally my experience. The fellowship worked out really well for me. I got what I wanted. And it's all about curating your own fellowship experience. And it's very, very subjective, I'd say. So, yeah.
So I can also just speak about my journey, about how I went about doing LAMP and how it worked out for me. So I believe somewhere in my third year, I had like this realization that I was gravitating more towards public policy and development sector type roles as opposed to a very pure corporate role in like a consulting or a finance firm. So that's when I started exploring the public policy domain. And as I believe Akriti or Shravan mentioned, that I did this course called the Policy and Action 1 month long course, which is conducted by this organization called VILAC, which is a very macro level course on what public policy entails, what does the domain look like in India, what are the various job opportunities, etc. And that's probably where I figured out about the existence of a LAMP fellowship, and that you're working under an MP for a year and it's like great exposure and everything. So that's when I came to know about LAMP. I applied for LAMP and got through. So my objectives of doing a LAMP fellowship are very similar to what Ashna mentioned in terms of just understanding what the space entails, what does the policy sector entail, how does it really work in India, what are the various constituents of a policy sector, right? And where do I see myself after having understood the entire domain? Where do I see myself contributing in the entire domain? So just in terms of a very third person perspective of LAMP, I feel the strength of the fellowship is threefold. So one is just the network, right? So within the cohort, you have like a very diversified cohort which is coming from all walks of life. Some are people who've got like some 2-3 years of work experience, whereas people like me who are absolute freshers. Some are people from commerce, economics, journalism, engineers, everything. So it's agnostic of your work experience and your domain of study. So it's a very diverse cohort, and you get to make some great friends who then go on to do further great things in the policy domain, which is pretty great. And even outside of your cohort, you have like various guest speakers and other organizations that you get to interact with, and therefore serves as a good opportunity to network in just the policy sector if you're looking for jobs and if you're just looking to make new friends and understand it better. The second thing I would say is just the actual learning which happens through the fellowship, which again is twofold. So one is just by virtue of the research that you're doing for your MP, maybe and even the research is multifaceted. So on one day you'll be reading on things like internal security, the next day you'll be reading about the starvation problem in Jharkhand, right? So it's as wild as that, and there's no 2 days which look alike in that sense. So there's a lot of research and a lot of random things that you'll be reading up and then be expected to like cull out policy briefs out of. So you have to then read up a lot and then write policy briefs for your MP on that. So one is research, and the second thing is exposure, right? So you have exposure to how the parliament really functions and works. What do MPs do on a day-to-day basis? How do they work? How do bills come out in the parliament and how are they enacted upon? And how do various other private sector organizations interact with the parliamentary system through advocacy and various other means? So just that exposure and understanding of the domain is the second sort of stronghold of the LAM Fellowship. And the third thing, as Khushbu had mentioned, are these training sessions which PRS conducts, right? So PRS conducts various sessions in broad policy areas like education, health, climate change, tech policy, etc., which again are very informative and helpful for a person to figure out what really interests them and intrigues them enough. So if I were to talk specifically about my experience, so my MP was in two committees, two parliamentary committees. One was the Committee for Home Affairs and one was the Public Accounts Committee. So by virtue of him being in these two committees, I would read up a lot of these CAG, Controller and Auditor General reports. I would read up a lot of Home Ministry reports. And after reading these reports, you have to call out questions and suggestions for your MP, which would then actually be put to good use. So when the minutes of those meetings come, you see the points that you had mentioned in your MP's briefs being used in these committee meetings. So they are being utilized to some effect. The questions that you put for your MP are sometimes picked up by various news organizations. So if your MP asks a question in the parliament, and if it's unearthing some information which isn't already there in the public domain, then it's something that does appear in news media and something that you're then contributing to actively, right? You're trying to cull out new information from within the parliamentary domain for public consumption. So that in itself is a huge thing to do. Like the gravity of it is pretty massive. So just in terms of the gravity of the work that you're doing and the impact that you're creating, there's a lot of scope there.
I think Saloni mostly covered everything that is there to the LAM Fellowship. I think adding to that, and as Ashna and Saloni both said, I think expectations versus reality in any fellowship are very important. Different people enter fellowships with different expectations, and we all would know people whose expectations weren't met and they were unsatisfied with their fellowship. So I think whenever you're entering a fellowship or when you get through and when you decide to take the fellowship on, it's very important to set your expectations correctly before the start of the fellowship and then sort it out. So I think Saloni and I both did the same fellowship, but we ended up in two different places. She went on to do a public policy job. I went on to a B school, right? So I think when I took the fellowship, I took it in terms of just exploration, because at the end of the day, I think I knew that in the far end of things, I would end up in a corporate role, and this is probably a one-off opportunity for me to experience something new before I get onto a corporate role that I would be doing for a few years. And it also gave me the exposure to return to the social sector at some point later when my corporate career sort of ends. Having said that, I think the LAM Fellowship beautifully does two things for you. One is that it explores you to the entire gamut of the social sector. Like for me personally, I realized that there is not, when I entered the fellowship, I thought there were just NGOs, but then you realize there's NGOs, there's lobbying, there's a lot of private sector organizations that do a lot of social sector work as well. So you understand the whole gamut of things that exist in the social sector space. And secondly, your interactions with your MP within the LAM Fellowship are invaluable in terms of how it works. You understand what it entails to be a member of parliament, and your respect for the political system at large increases because you understand what kind of work MPs do and what kind of work it takes to be in politics. And even when you're sitting with them and writing speeches, you realize that all what they're saying is not vain. There's a lot of work and there's a lot of research that has gone behind whatever they're saying. So I think those are some of the intangible things that you take from the fellowship. I think for me, having done the fellowship and then having gone to a B school, a very good thing that happened was that I was able to sort of gain both perspectives in terms of understand governance and understand businesses as well. And that sort of added in terms of having understood two different systems well. So yeah.
So that's really motivating. So moving to the next question, what are the expectations of such organization during various stages of selection, that is application process or interviews, etc.? What are their expectations?
So regarding Casper Fellowship, they have certain selection criteria as such, and they do say that it would be preferable if you have a master's degree or a PhD in the particular areas, but also if you have a bachelor's degree and you have a proven knowledge in good academics and proven application process in those areas such as economics, population science, development studies, and international relations, law and business management, which are the courses which are being taught in SRCC as well. So you can definitely apply, and professionally you should have some experience about research or idea about data analysis and what is done in a quantitative level. And if you have some experience of interning at some governmental or non-governmental organization as well, it will add on to your application. And you should have the art of writing and getting into the research aspect. So it is more of exploratory in the sense that if you are not sure that if you love to be in the research or academic field, you can definitely try yourself out here. But it is definitely going to give you a very vivid and wholesome experience in that way. And they have a proper application form process, which is not that cumbersome. I will let you know, you can easily apply. It's pretty easy. And where you have to submit a writing sample, of course, regarding some topic of research of your choice. And if you have some published papers before, then you can mention. And then there's an interview process, out of which 12 fellows are selected from all over India each year for the 1-year program. And I believe that as an undergraduate students, you can really work on your skills of reading up articles and papers. Just have the art of reading them, because I personally know that back then when I was in undergraduation during those times, so research papers was not that cliche or common or known thing to people. It was something I got to know within my first year itself. And I eventually had my encounters regarding research while working under the professors and the programs that I've had as an edge for. So those kind of things will help you prepare for such selection process. And you can definitely have a very smooth experience in the application status as well, because it won't be taking much of your time. Not even during the fellowship. They're more of there to help you learn, where you can also then come out with working papers and collaborate your ideas, just build up your ideas, and how to structurally have a research ideation out of it. So they'll help you there. So I do believe that students must give themselves a try at this as well.
Yeah, just picking up from what Sonia said. So some of the obvious things that every place would consider is a decent academic score, some extracurriculars, all of that, which is true for everything, to be honest. You go for a job or you go for a fellowship or a master's, etc. Specifically, one thing that YF considers is what you want out of the fellowship, right? I mean, they don't expect you to know where you should be after the fellowship, but what are you wanting to get out of that experience, out of that 1 year, right? That is what they try to understand during the interview, and that is what your interview is largely based on. So, from personal experiences in the fellowship, I know people who've transitioned from the corporate sector to the development space. I know there was a person who come from DN who's now working in public health. I know there was a person who'd come from a BCom background who's now doing a PhD. I also know people who've transitioned to a corporate background, right? This person who came from Google, now he's working in Michael Page. So I mean, there are still people who venture into the private sector as well. There are people who start their own startups, who go for higher studies, etc. There is this one common link that binds them all, right? So what you want out of the fellowship is one major thing that they try to see. If you see the YF application form, there are 3 essay type questions in there, and those 3 questions, try to understand this very thing, which is why the questions are there in the first place. So that is one. I think what worked out for me personally well was, I mean, apart from having, I was a part of a few societies in college. I also used to swim, so I had like things to talk about. But apart from that, I personally feel one thing that really worked out for me was because was that I was very very honest in my interview. So I'll give you a very small example, and you guys might judge me as well, but it was only after the fellowship that I, started indulging in these research papers, really heavy non-fiction books that are relevant, etc. Like I mentioned before, I really didn't read when I was back in college, right, in SRCC. So in the form, you also have a question which asks you, regarding some of the books that you've read. To just know what are your reading habits, what sort of content you indulge in. And at that point in time, I really didn't read, right? So I'd mentioned Chetan Bhagat books in my options. And they asked me in this interview, I mean, sort of sarcastically asked me, oh, we think you're a fan of Chetan Bhagat or something like that. But I feel that really worked out for me because it was better than like faffing and like bluffing, right? They are professors whose teaching experience is more than your age, right? So you bluff and they catch it in 2 minutes. So I think one thing that personally really worked out well for me, apart from having all of the things, was being very very honest in my interview and being very clear regarding what I wanted from the fellowship, why I was coming to this, why I was taking that leap of faith, that risk, by leaving a job, and doing something as offbeat as this. And I think all three, all the others would agree with me that at that point in time, the concept of fellowships was not really that explored, right? I mean, personally, when I was in SRCC, no one had told me, oh, there is this sort of fellowship, this exists. It was only that I got to know it, I got to know it from other people. Then I went to the fellowship and I really realized that, yeah, there are other people as well. There are other things as well. There are other fellowships as well. I had absolutely no idea about all of the fellowships that we've spoken about when I was back in college, not even YF, to be honest, till the last month of college. It was only, I applied in Feb and the deadline was in March, right? So all of that was there. But yeah, these are the three things that personally worked for me. Apart from having the basics of having your hygiene in place, just be very, very honest. And the most important thing, I think, which is sort of which should be relevant to all fellowships, is knowing what you want to get out of the fellowship. Yeah.
So, in terms of LAMP specifically, of course, the good grades and everything is relevant across the fellowships, as Ashna mentioned. But more specifically, talking about LAMP, so the process is twofold, right? So the application has essentially two essay type questions, one being your SOP, which is trying to understand your motivations for applying towards LAMP, what you hope to achieve out of it, what are your objectives. So again, a very self-explanatory question. You have to be very clear on what your objective is for doing LAMP and how it aligns with what you would be doing in LAMP and what LAMP expects you to be doing. So that is the SOP, the statement of purpose. And the second is a policy brief. So you have to pick up a topic, a current bill or a policy, and write about it, critically analyze it from various aspects and see how it, holds up. So this is the first part of it. And now once your application is submitted, they shortlist a few hundred people whose interviews are conducted by like a 3-member, 4-member panel, and then the final shortlist of 50 odd LAM fellows comes out. So now this is what the overall process looks like. Now, given this process, there are certain expectations from both your application as well as your interview. So the first one just being demonstrated interest in public policy, right? Because that is a core component. If you're applying for a public policy fellowship, you should have had some interest which reflects in your CV as well. Now, this may be through various internships that you've done, some research papers that you may have written, some courses that you would have undertaken either in college or outside of college through third-party organizations, but just some form of demonstrated interest in public policy so that it doesn't just come across as a random fellowship that you're applying to. Having done like a 3 years course in economics and commerce, having done all corporate kind of jobs, it has to make sense for you to apply to a public policy fellowship. So one would be that. The second one is just your capability to write policy briefs, right? So the policy brief that you write is critically analyzed to try to see how holistic your analysis is of the policy that you've picked up, how well you're able to justify that in your interview, and how much do you even believe in it. Is it just something that you've copy pasted from somewhere, or is it something that you've put some original thought to? And the third one would just be around communication skills, which is again something very generic across fellowships. The fourth one would lastly be around your awareness, your general awareness of the polity, of various issues that are going on, because that is a core part of the fellowship that you're doing, being able to keep track of what all is going and therefore feed it to your MP in terms of various talks, issues to raise in the parliament, questions to raise in the parliament, etc. So that's what the overall process and expectations look like for LAM. And you can just add to this.
I think one small thing here to add is that specifically for the LAM fellowship, so when a lot of people think politics or public policy, they think it's largely about opinion. So you need to have a very strong opinion. The thing with the LAM fellowship is they want you to keep your opinion at bay. So when you're writing your policy brief, it's very important that you're objective about it. It's very important that you're able to analyze it from both sides. Even in the interview, they will ask you questions that ask you for your opinion, but then they're also looking for if you're okay with considering other opinions, because in the LAM fellowship you do not control which party, like it doesn't, you do not have power over which MP you work with. You do not get to decide which party's MP you work with. So it's very important that you're objective in your approach and you're holistic in understanding public policy and political issues. So yeah, that's something that should reflect in your interview as well as in your application.
Thank you all for sharing your insights. How do you think one should develop his overall profile for his desired fellowship? Also, can you share any personal advice for future fellowship aspirants?
So I believe that there are a lot of things that these students can do, which I remember I didn't have any senior to tell me or a friend to tell me, which I would definitely love to share. So there are a few things that people can do during the undergraduate studies, and also specifically if you have SRItes here, which have different opportunities as well, and we should really value them. So during my time, I remember the undergraduation, I was involved in research-based activities. Two major things that played role in my life that helped me find research as my sole place. One was I was working with my marketing professor who was teaching marketing in first and second year, and I was involved on a research point of view, which, you know, it was an idea which I just questioned, and then he suggested that maybe we can just deep dive into it, and then we took survey questionnaires and I converted into a project from my course, and then eventually I took it up as a research paper and I got it published in a journal by the end of my undergraduation. That was the first achievement I had in the field of research, which really made some sense to me. Apart from that, I was also involved in the DU Innovation Research Project that happens every year. So many students were not aware back when I was in graduating. So I believe that SRIs can definitely take the leverage where 10 students are selected every year for a dissertation project to represent SRCC and other colleges as well. So during my year, I presented a dissertation thesis on contract farming. So the experience was really beautiful, where I could genuinely go on ground, understand the challenges of the farmers. And it was not only on field, but also the dissertation and the SPSS and all the statistic analysis point of view. So these experiences overall helped me understand the research aspect, fetched internships during my entire college year, where I was able to intern at 4 to 5 good think tanks and renowned organizations. And also I was able to have prestigious Bank of Japan and Mitsubishi scholarship in my second year because of the research thing. So I believe research has given me a lot and I'm really interested. And then going forward, and I have done my master's. So during that also I was working as a RA for my professor, and we worked on a paper on neuromarketing, which we presented at Cornell University. And meanwhile, I was working on my statistical tool analysis and information like Stata, SPSS, R, Python. So wherever research is included and data analysis involved, these are the things that we need to gather to understand the narratives behind the numbers and the data that we see. So that is the experience that I tried to grab. And apart from that, my experience as an RA at MICA has helped me enhance my profile. And I'm currently collaborating with professors at a global level, which is helping me in understanding the part of research paper writing, and also giving the tutorials for the MBA students as a teaching assistant. So I believe if you really want to deep dive into it, you have to grab those uncliche opportunities in life which others are not doing. And you get to know only when you're connected with such people who are already into it. So I believe connecting with your alumni and being aware about your environment is the best thing that you can do yourself to prepare yourself for anything, not only these fellowships.
again, agree with Sonia on the research bit. I personally, was not involved much in research when I was back in college. But I think, I mean, it's a great practice, and I personally feel research is very, very relevant. Even if you're working in a corporate, it will really help you because specialization is very important, right? You can't be a generalist in today's world, and to be a specialist, you have to do research. It's inevitable, right? So it's good you start, that you start as early as possible. Get hold of your professors in college, start doing some bit of research, do internships. Any sort of experience is really good. Utilize your summers, utilize your winters, do have some sort of, work experience, internship experience. That will be really, really helpful. Apart from that, see the fellowships that you want to get into, right? And after that, try reaching out to the alums, or try reaching out to the people who've done fellowships. They will really be able to give you a lot of guidance. I think all of us did not really have that guidance back in college. I personally reached out to a couple of people who've done fellowships, but we didn't really have these sort of forums and platforms that people came and told us about the fellowships, right? So that is great. And because you have access to all of these things, start early on, start early as possible, get in touch with the right people. Apart from the usual stuff, right? We all know, okay, as soon as we enter into college, second years keep on telling us, oh, you know what, you need to get into societies, you will get that sort of experience. So all that is great. Be a part of societies, and also do work that you can speak about, right? Having a society tag name is not enough. When you go for interviews, you should also be able to speak about them and tell them how have you added value in that society, right? It can be any society, but it's just that you have to play a part in doing something and bringing about something in that society, right? So the usual stuff continue to do, which is being a part of societies, being a part of extracurriculars, having your internship experiences. But I think one thing that definitely I'll echo Sonia here is try doing some sort of research, try having some sort of experience, because that is very, very important. And irrespective of wherever you go, right? You go for your masters, that will be relevant. Even if you plan to go for an MBA, you will be given an edge, and it will really make a hell lot of difference if they see a research paper on your CV, or if they see that you worked under some professor on some research project. So for a fellowship, for a masters, and for an MBA, right, I think it will be relevant in all walks of life. So yeah, I think these are the major things that you should focus on. And apart from that, I'm pretty sure that being in SRCC, there is always a lot to learn, and there are a lot of platforms, right? So many societies, so many things to do. So I'm pretty sure the CVs of everyone here would be great. But yeah, these are some of the extra things that you can do.
So I can talk more specifically about LAM because all of, I believe, the generic points have been sort of covered. So I'll break it down into two components. A, just the application process and what you can do while applying. And B, once you've been accepted into the fellowship, what are some things that you can be more mindful of perhaps? So on the application front, I feel it's just firstly very good to acquaint yourself with the overall policy or the social impact domain. And that can be done through just spending hours at end on just LinkedIn, seeing what are the various companies and places that people are, working in, what are the rules that people are working in, and what are the various kinds of policies, fellowships, etc. And once you have that basic level of understanding of what the space entails, then just being very convinced that okay, LAM fellowship, given all of that I know, actually is the correct fellowship. So for this purpose, you could actually talk to people who are not really familiar with the LAM fellowship and have them question you why you want to do it. So when you're trying to make your case to them, you're also understanding yourself why this fellowship speaks for you and why it would be the right thing for you to do just after graduating. So in that sense, it always helps to have these conversations both with people who are already been through it as well as people who don't know about it so that you can make a stronger case for it, which then reflects while you're applying for the fellowship in itself. Secondly, just again repeating myself, speak to a lot of ex-lams to just get their insights because the kind of insights that they will offer will be very different from the kind of information which is available on a website, right? So that is definitely very important, and you can even have like your essays, etc., weighted by ex-lams, have them edited and suggest some changes in your overall application in order to make it better and just make it more robust in that sense. For the interview purpose, again, just brushing up on your general knowledge of quality, public policy, having very clear reasons for if there are any gaps in your CV, then you should know why those gaps exist, having solid reasons to defend that. or if there's something that you feel doesn't really make sense or stands out in your CV, then having that reasoning very solid and very clear in your head so that you can justify it to an interview panel when you sit in front of them. And also just having a clear objective again, and a roadmap for post LAMP. So once you do get accepted into LAMP, it's not like you've achieved everything. You still need to continue to work towards what you want to do after LAMP, because it's very easy for you to be complacent and be like, हाँ मैंने achieve कर लिया, मेरे को जो करना था. But like a few months into it, you also need to start networking and just finding organizations which would be the right fit for you after the fellowship ends. So that networking process has to be something that has to be ongoing, and that can only be achieved by extracting as much value from both your cohort as well as external relationships that you have as much as possible. So leveraging the LAMP tag, in fact, I would say is something that's very important because it's something that's known and recognized very well in the industry. So that can be through attending events and talking to speakers there, talking to just general organizations which are trying to get in touch with your MP's office, because a lot of advocacy organizations would try to leverage your MP to put forth their work and their points in the parliament. So just being able to leverage your office and your position is something that I would advise all of you to keep in mind if and when you do apply for LAMP. And just don't be restricted to the role that a LAMP fellowship has, right? So on paper you only have these X number of things that you're supposed to do, but you can always be creative. By virtue of being in an MP's office, you have like a lot of access, a lot of reach. So for instance, in my case, I wanted to do a certain pilot in my MP's constituency, which I had worked quite a lot towards. It didn't pan out in the end for certain reasons, but you can always get creative with things that you want. So if you recognize a gap, you can always use your office and your access to do something to sort of then answer that gap. And in that sense, the period between any two sessions in the parliament, so there's like a monsoon session, there's a winter session, and there's some break in between where the MPs go back to their constituency. So that period is something that you should definitely try to leverage as much as possible to just explore, to find out creative things to do, to just otherwise figure out what you would want to do after the fellowship. Yeah.
I don't, adding on to that, I don't think there's a set answer to what helps you get through the LAMP fellowship, what sort of CV helps you. Because if you just look at the resumes of all the people who are there, it's not necessary that all of them have internships that pertain to NGOs, or all of them have done specific work that pertains to the social sector prior to them applying to LAMP. But I think one thing that they do want to look at is, do you have a genuine interest in public policy? They don't want someone who's there just to do the fellowship for the heck of doing fellowship, right? So if there is anything on your resume that can show that you have a genuine interest in public policy, or that can sort of show that you at least tried, as Sonia, Ashna, Saloni mentioned, it could just be a research paper, it could just be an internship, it could be anything. So it doesn't have to specifically be that from first year you've been building your resume towards public policy or the development sector, but some sort of interest on your resume should show. And if you do decide to actively think about applying to the LAMP fellowship, I think that is something that you should start figuring out on your resume before you apply. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing your valuable insights. So the chat box is now enabled for the attendees to ask their questions. So anyone if have any question, they can ask in the chat box.
Also, meanwhile, as people go on to the questions, I do believe that one piece of advice would be for the students not to go for the cliche, especially us people who, come into that commerce background and we have that pressure of going into investment banking, consulting, and the CA professions, all sort of things. The pressure of placements and MBA schools. Just take a breather, understand what you want to do really in your life. If it takes few years, give them yourself, and don't just bind yourself into the majors or the specializations you did. You can do something beyond that as well. Don't tie yourself into the conventional studies that you have done. So move beyond those things and try different things where you are really passionate at, and give yourself that kind of leverage where you're experiencing those things. The best part would be to explore during the internship programs throughout the college. That would be the best area where you can explore where your heart really lies. That's what I did as well. In my time, I explored every area: finance, marketing, HR, all the subjects, all the things that I could do, from good good companies to startups. So just understand what really lies within, and then choose your fellowships and programs if you're into it.
Completely agreeing with Sonia there. I think a lot of us, even when you're in that third year, you're bound, you feel that kind of peer pressure to just go from point A to point B, that now I've done economics, now I have to go on an IB job, I have to go on a consulting job. But see, I mean, we're all young, still all young, even despite wherever we are currently. And I think you can always take time to sort of have experiences. These experiences matter a lot more than you entering an IB or a consulting role fresh out of college. So bear that in mind.
So someone is asking about the MGNF fellowship, which is in the IIM Bangalore, I believe. So I believe it's usually the way where you're trained in the first year as well as given some sessions, and you're also allocated to a particular place and particular, I would say, area where you're working on a project with the government ministry and people. And there are one or two alumni of ours as well who's been working in those, so you can definitely connect with those people and know more about it, because you definitely not only get a good stipend along with the fellowship, but also a learning process and the certificate for the program. So it is in its own self very good, but I believe that it will take at least a few years of experience that you get into that program. So before MGNF, maybe you can think of some other programs as well to reach to that level.
Next question which we have is, how did you prepare yourself for the selection process and the fellowship?
I believe Khushbu Saloni would be better to talk about the LAM fellowship, which is really on ground. So
So as I said, I feel a bunch of things, right? There's no straightjacketed way of just going about it. But firstly, having it very clear in your head about why you want to do the land fellowship, speaking with a lot of seniors, just reading up very constantly about all that's going on, because it will prove to be helpful for you in the interviews and when you're trying to decide a topic for your policy brief, which you have to write for the land fellowship. So doing that, then just getting in touch with your seniors to vet your application before you submit it, preparing very well for the interview on three fronts. So like your general knowledge, you having very clear answers to the gaps in your CV, as well as just being able to defend the policy brief that you've written in the application round, in the interview round, is something that I would consider important. So yeah, I think that would be it from my end.
rest of you can always reach out to any of us, I believe. You can share our email IDs and you can definitely connect with us if it's regarding the application process for this fellowship or some other fellowships that we have talked about. So you can always get in touch regarding these things. Do fellowships help in foreign university admissions? So I believe it depends from fellowship to fellowship. As you will see, many of your alumni have done Teach for India fellowships and YIFs, and that has helped them to get into a very good master's program in foreign universities, some of the prestigious one as well. So I believe that you need to be understanding what area you want to work in, because if you say that you want to do a master's in some data science or something, and if you're working on a fellowship which is into development and education, it might not really make sense. But many of the Teach for India fellows and Gandhi fellows go forward to programs of masters in public policy, MSED education and governance and development and policy, so those kind of things. So similarly, when I worked as at the Casper, So that has helped my profile, and that helped me to get into the University of Cambridge as well, because not only academics but research backing is also required. So I got my MPhil program, which is gonna relate to the PhD later on through this process. So I do believe that yes, they help you with that enhancement. They might not really guarantee you or get you that kind of placements, but they kind of give you the rigor that you require for those programs.
I think one important thing that you need for foreign university admissions is, as Sonia said, one is that sort of relevant experience, and the other is the network. So, for example, we know a lot of LAM fellows who've gone on for Yale Masters in Development Economics. We know of LAM fellows who've gone on for Geneva School of Dev Studies. We know of LAM fellows who've gone on for Harvard Masters in Public Policy. So, you get a network. When you get that network, you're able to understand how the admissions committee works, what kind of applications they expect, what are the things that are generally required, even when you're trying to get your LOR, writing your SOPs. So having a network of people who've gone through that process sort of helps. I think network is the big thing that helps. And of course, after that, it's just about how your overall resume looks, how your SOP looks, and how the fellowship sort of ties into your overall journey into what you have done till now and what is it that you want to apply to the master's program for.
Just to add to what Sonia and Khushbu both said, and specifically in Ashoka's context as well, right? Your network is very, very important. I think one thing that these things also guarantee is a strong network. Another thing that that comes in Ashoka is, apart from your alumni network, there's a very, very strong network of your founders, your trustees, and the professors, right? So it's again, coming back to the point of how you curate your fellowship, what sort of connections you make. So, one thing that I did after my fellowship was, become a teaching assistant for a professor who was a visiting faculty in Harvard and who'd done his PhD in Harvard, right? That is how I got an opportunity to work with him. And that is how I got to learn from him, right? So having that sort of network where you work under professors from these sort of universities also has a plays a very, very important role. When you reach out to the professors who are a part of these universities, you not only get perspective from people, your alums who've been to those universities, but you go one level up and you get a perspective from the professors and the people who also teach in those universities, right? Apart from that, one thing that Sonia also mentioned was how the conscious steps that you take in your fellowship, right? So now, say for example, you've done the fellowship, you've created your own trajectory or journey, and that is also something that you want to do. Say for example, you want an MPP in Stanford, in Harvard, or you want an MPP in Columbia. Your fellowship experience really helps you justify that, right? And it really, really counts in your CV, in your SOPs, all of that. So again, coming back to the point that Saloni made early on in the discussion was that the fellowships are a stepping stone for the masters, and they really, really do play an important role in the masters, in getting your higher studies and getting your masters. Yeah.
Thank you for answering this question. I believe no more questions are coming, so we can conclude the session. We thank you all for being a part of the session today. Hope you all had a great time. Looking forward to having you in the future as well. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us here. Bye-bye.
So
Thank you.